welcome. We're doing a little bit of a Heroic Division pre-show here before we get into the cast for Big Push Power versus 30k Violet. My name is Jasleen, and joining me this evening is Goon. Goon, how's your day going?
It's pretty good. Pretty good, chilling. Just a cozy evening, Monday night. Hanging out, ready to watch some awesome games, hopefully, and get to see what these teams, how competitive these teams actually are.
Yeah, this is an interesting division because a lot of the teams we've seen popping up and other things such as Heroes Rise Contender Series or the Storm Div qualifiers and stuff like that. And some other teams you're maybe not familiar with. So we're going to talk a little bit about those teams before we talk about the matchup that we're going to be casting tonight. So let's just kick this straight off here. The first team in Heroic Division is 30k Violet. I don't want to cover too much about them, but they've been, putting in the work in things like Heroes Rise Contender Series. They did try to qualify for Storm Div. They were very, very close to getting in on points, but unfortunately that last qualifier didn't, the seeding kind of like, they could have got in, but they got paired against a really tough team and ended up getting beat out by Camp Censorship for the last spot for points here. So that puts them down into the Heroic Division. I don't want to linger too much on them because we're going to come back around and talk about 30k more in depth a little bit later when we're talking about the matchup here. So we'll keep on trucking here. But we have DGen M next. This is a bit of a newer team. Good, do you know anything about them?
DGen M, I like the name. No, I don't know too much about this team. I mean, maybe if I saw some names. I haven't done my homework.
No, that's okay. I did a little bit. So they're a new team on the block this season. They're created this year for this season of NGS. They have players from Gen M Esports. That was a Nexus team. They finished 8th seed last season of NGS. Some players from Phoenix Rising Xanthite as well, which was a 1st seed in Nexus Division. And some players from Regen as well, which is a Storm Div team. So a little bit a mix of a bunch of different teams to form DGen M. A lot of these players have played in multiple seasons of NGS, with some of them previously playing on the same team. So there is a bit of pre-existing synergy between some of the players on DGen M and a decent amount of experience just in general competing in NGS. So I'm kind of interested to see how their team comes together, knowing that a lot of their players have played in the upper divisions of NGS before.
Yeah, I mean, multiple seasons in NGS, I mean, that's nothing really to scoff at. That's multiple seasons of competitive experience. One of the things that a lot of up-and-coming players, aspiring players, professional players ask me is, how do I get a shot at getting looked at? It was like playing competitive leagues and kind of grind and get to know people, showcase your stuff. And also that environment of being in a competitive environment kind of helps build you up in a different way, in a much more robust way than Storm League can. So seeing teams like this that have been around a bit in the competitive scene, it's pretty cool. I wonder how they will end up faring against teams that have an academy team, I guess, from like these orgs or whatnot. But yeah.
Next up, we have Dragon Strike. This is also a newer team to the block here. They did go under a different name called Smoke at first and finished. That was a B Northeast team for Season 12. But it's a completely different roster now, with Psycho being the only person to stay from the original roster. And it's a lot of new NGS players as well on this team. So only a couple of them have played in some seasons of NGS. So a lot of new to competitive players on this team. So this is another one that I think is going to be interesting to keep an eye on, because they've never played on teams in these competitive, at least not in NGS from what the website's saying. Maybe they did other things like Heroes Lounge or stuff we don't know about, but this is like probably the newest team in the division, I would think, this season.
They got a cool logo, and I do know somebody on this roster here on Dragon Strike. I did that much homework. Yeah, and to be placed in Heroic Division without having a whole bunch of competitive experience, a lot of not too much information for NGS to rely on. To end up here, you have to have a decent enough MMR to be placed here. So maybe these players have some mechanical skill and know-how and can be able to coordinate together to find success.
All right, moving on here. Next team we have is Imagine. This is another team that has a lot of players that have several seasons of experience of NGS together, not necessarily all on the same roster. However, 3 of their members did previously play together in Heroic Division on the team Archon. They finished 8th seed and were knocked out in the first round of the playoffs last season. But you know, this is another season where they can kind of build upon whatever synergies that those few players had together, and then they got a couple new members playing on there. Some names a little bit familiar. We've seen popping up here or there. You might recognize Breakwood or JTR or McNulty are all playing on Imagine this season. So this is, I think, a team that has a lot of experience. It's just like, is this iteration and this roster going to be the one that's successful for them?
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of experience here. A lot of these people have been around for a bit, and I think that that's going to give them an edge. They know kind of already what to expect to be in a competitive environment, to be on a team, and to be able to perform well. I do think I'm going to go ahead and like drop my caster curse, I guess. On this team. I'm going to say this is a team that I'm probably going to people have to look out for and really pay attention to.
All right. Moving on here, we have Rook Gaming. Now, Rook Gaming has been hitting it hard in Heroes Rise Contender Series. They're a new team being managed by Dax. You guys are probably familiar with Dax. He created his own org, Rook Gaming, and this is his roster. They played HRCS. I think they tried to get in on Storm Div. They might have played a qualifier or two, but it didn't work out there. And whispers are that Justing is coaching them. So this is a team that we're maybe looking at for scaling, potentially. But they've been together about, I would say, a month now. A little bit longer than that, maybe. Yeah, they haven't had the best results in Heroes Rise Contender Series, but keeping in mind that they've really only been together a month and there's growing pains there, I'm interested to see how the season progresses now that they are starting to get some of that synergy and team building happening.
Yeah, a couple roster changes as well, from when they first entered HRCS to where they are at now. So maybe we'll see some different results for sure.
All right, next up, we have got Big Push Power. I don't really want to cover too much about Big Push Power. Quite a few of them have experience, I will say, and we'll talk a little bit more about them when we are breaking down the 30K Violet Big Push Power matchup that we're going to be casting tonight. So we'll just leave it at that for now, and we'll move on to the next team here. This is, I'm a little bit of a Bronze 6 fangirl. I have to admit.
I like him.
Yeah, I like them too. Danny is he's a great guy. I casted a lot of their games in season 11, and they were in Division B at the time, B West. And so I ended up casting a ton of their games, and I had some friends that were on the team as well, and I got to know them all a little bit better. But they have been, these is one of the coolest teams because they're one of those teams where they really haven't changed their roster that much over the seasons, yet they've consistently been climbing up the divisions as they go here. They started season 9, they were a B West, they finished 5th seed. Season 10, they were B West again, and that season, they were their division winners. Season 11, they went to Nexus Division, where they finished 2nd seed, but were knocked out in the semifinals. In Season 12, they were bumped up to Heroic Division, where they finished 3rd seed, but were knocked out in round 1 of the playoffs. So they're just constantly just growing and growing their roster. There'll be a change like here or there for subs, but it's so cool to see a group of players stick together season after season and see them progress the way that Bronze 6 has been doing. So this is another team I'm super excited to watch in Heroic Division this season.
I agree. I know Bronze 6 from the previous iteration of Wild Heart Omega. They were consistent scrim partners for Wild Heart Omega. You know, we beat up on them a bunch, and we're glad to see that they're scaling. Actually, I scrimmed them the other night with my team, $1 Million JPEG, and they got a play style, and it's pretty explosive. I'll just say that it's pretty cool, and I'm excited to see what Danny, Kira, Ferret, what these players all do, and where they end up. This is definitely going to be one of the teams that I'm going to be paying very close attention to.
Yeah, sure. I really love some of their draft ideas and the things they like to run. Like, I know from casting previously, one of the things that you would see this team bring out a lot was the Uther Genji pair up, the duo in their comp. And what you would end up having is teams like actually just target banning either the Genji or Uther out and having to like leave up good things for them because they didn't want to have to deal with that combo. So it's a really fun team to watch. They pull out some cool comps sometimes, and I'm excited to see them this season in Heroic.
They got some pocket pick heroes for sure.
Yeah. Next, we have the Seven Rings. This is another team that has been putting in the work in HRCS as well. Probably not the best results that they would have wanted in Hercs, but they have been putting in the time. A lot of the players have not participated in NGS before. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. But you might recognize some of them if you're a Storm League, a Storm Leaguer, especially in the Diamond Master.
Griefer.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, you might recognize them if you're up there in the Diamond Masters kind of range of players. These are a lot of players that grinded out in Storm League. So, Goon, thoughts on Seven Rings? We've seen them quite a bit lately.
Yeah. They showed up for every HRCS qualifier for sure and played. This, like you said, this is a group of Storm Leaguers that are trying their hand in competitive. So they have this mechanical skill. They have their ideas for how the game works. Now they're in this phase where they're trying to put that in a competitive environment and work with as a unit, as five, and see what kind of results they can come up with. I will say, you can have plat players, I guess, playing in competitive at an earlier point in their careers, find a lot of success in competitive and climb up and maybe still, maybe hover plat, diamond in Storm League, but find success in competitive. And then you can have masters, GMs, and diamonds playing at those ranks, playing competitive for the first time and seeing a mixed bag of results. It's different. It's like a different skill set that each team or that these teams have to learn.
Well,
and I'm very curious to see how that.
Just because you're mechanically good at the game doesn't mean that you work well in a team or work well with others. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Seven Rings, so far maybe a little bit struggling in things like HRCS, but we're getting into Heroic Division. Maybe these teams for like looking at teams like Rook Gaming, the Seven Rings that we're playing a lot, 30K Violet in things like HRCS, now that they're seeded into this division, this might be teams more on par and we could see them, kind of dominating here. Maybe. You never know.
Yeah, they've for sure been grinding. So
yeah. Next up we have Caffeinated Knights, I believe. Yeah. This is another one of those teams like Bronze 6 that their roster has had some changes, I think a little bit more than Bronze 6 has had, but they've been grinding it out in NGS. Season 9, they were a B West division. Season 10, they were an A East division. Season 11, they were in Nexus division. Season 12, they were in Nexus division. And their most recent season, by the way, they did finish second seed in that division, but were knocked out in round 1 of the playoffs. And here they are in season 13, placed into Heroic division. So this is another team that's kind of grown over time. Their rosters have a little bit changed from season to season, but Arc, Harborum, and Osmanthus have been remaining on the roster since it first formed. So those three continue to be on the team since since season 9 of NGS here. So this is another cool team. I just love to see players just work and grind it out and progress and grow and that there's potential. It's inspiring for other players that are sitting down and gold plat thinking like, oh, I'm never gonna get better, I'm always gonna sit here. Like, no, you can put in the work, you can put in the time. Look at these teams like Bronze 6, like Caffeinated Knights, that have put in the time and have grown and are now up here in Heroic Division. This is the highest division you can be seeded into unless you want to qualify for Storm Div. This is like, without playing these qualifier matches, this is the highest division you can end up in. So,
and Caffeinated Knights picked up Felipe too, which is a pretty strong player. Man, I actually know a lot more about these teams than I thought. I think Caffeinated Knights has the potential to scale pretty good. And just like I was just thinking this, and Key said it in chat.
Yeah.
Heroic last season was pretty good. This is going to be probably one of the more, I hope, one of the more competitive seasons for Heroic. And I would argue that like some of these teams can actually keep up with I will say probably the bottom half of Storm Division teams and take those games from them as well. It's completely possible.
Hmm.
So that gap between that lower half of Storm Div and the Heroic, it's pretty close,
Yeah.
and it's a pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. There really isn't a huge gap in skill between the upper of what we're probably going to see in Heroic and the lower of Storm Division. So these are going to
Hmm.
be some very competitive games. I think these could be just as entertaining, if not more entertaining to watch than Storm Div games, simply because there is a huge disbalance in teams in Storm Division with some of those Franken CCL teams happening over there, or
Hmm.
just full CCL teams. We take it the wayeth. um,
Hey, Anti Clown Association.
yes, I know, I know. So yeah, I think it's definitely a division to keep your eyes out for. We'll keep going here. We have Team Happy Cloud next. This team's been around forever, like at least season 8 of Storm Div. Whether they've been keeping with the same main roster and stuff, there's been a lot of people added to the team. In fact, I think they have something like 9 players on their roster right now.
Hmm.
And most of their players do have several seasons of NGS, and about half of them are about half of the 9 that are on the roster were on this team from the start. So they've been keeping a lot of the players, adding a lot of new players as they go here. They finished last season Heroic Division 5th seed and were knocked out in the semifinals of the playoffs. So this is another team, a little bit of experience in Heroic Division already. Had a year here to kind of figure out what they're doing, and maybe they're going to continue to scale in this season.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm not too familiar with. I don't know too much about. I do know they played in the Storm Division, the last Storm Division qualifier, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and that's about as much as I know about this team. But definitely one that, hey, they're here. They've been around for a bit. Definitely keep an eye on them.
All right, and last but not least for Heroic Division, we have Vendetta. This is a team that played a little bit of Heroes Rise Contender Series, especially the first half of it, the first split of HRCS. They played a bit there, and they've also played a little bit in NGS. They played in Season 11. They were in Nexus Division. They finished 4th seed and were knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. And then Season 12, they were Heroic Division. They finished 7th seed and were knocked out once again in the first round of the playoffs by the actual champs of the division from last season as well, Babymakers. So a tough matchup to start for them for playoffs. But here's another team, they kind of probably are ready to get their the groove going and like make this their season. They've had 2 seasons in a row here where they've got knocked out the first round of playoffs, so I'm sure they're eager to prove themselves going into this season.
Yeah, you remind me some of the names on this roster.
Oh, I'd have to pull it up. I didn't
You have
write
to
it
pull
all
it up.
down.
Okay, all right, never mind then. Never mind. I'll look it up later. but yeah, I remember seeing them in HRCS, and I would like to see, I would hope and like to see them perform here in Heroic Division, and continue playing the game. I'm not too familiar again with their roster or anything like that. I do remember seeing them a little bit, and I want to say there was probably like a roster change or something during the HRCS
Mm-hmm.
qualifier, so it may not be the same people that I was thinking originally. But no, I'm very curious. This is actually like a really cool division to
Yeah.
be a part of and to observe and watch and stuff. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, me too. And I was like breaking down who is all on these teams, and I'm seeing names and these teams pop up that I recognize from
Yeah.
being either in lower divisions and now climbing their way up into Heroic. I did open up here Vendetta's roster right now. Geo Xerix, Zelgo
Hmm.
Jacko, Indigo Zap,
Yeah.
Daniel San, Lusmos, Haldir, Ale Kitty, and Ska. I don't know, is that how you say his name? But all of them really,
Indigo Zap and yeah, Dino
they're
Jack.
they don't really have a lot of seasons in NGS. Most of them this is their second season in NGS, and their first one was on this team. So this is still kind of a more fresh team in comparison to some of the other rosters in this division. So I'm interested to see how they play this season. You're kind of sticking with the same team here. Not really any new additions. I don't think let me see. They added Ale Kitty they added
Hmm.
Ale Kitty last season. That's the newest player. So and they joined August of last year. So this is a roster that's kind of been together for quite a while now. So I'm interested to see if they've been working, getting ready for this season, and how things play out for them as well. All right. Let's continue on here. We're going to talk about the matches for this week in case you guys are curious of what's happening. It's going to be Vendetta versus Imagine for their first week. We're going to see 30K versus Big Push Power, which is the match that Goon and I are casting. Caffeinated Knights are playing DGen M this week. We have Dragon Strike playing the 7 Rings. And lastly, Bronze 6 is playing Rook Gaming, and Team Happy Cloud gets the bye this week since I think there's 11 teams in their division, so uneven number. Team Happy Cloud with the bye, they get a nice break, an extra week to grind it out and maybe show up even better. But any interesting matchups you're looking at here that you think, maybe go check out when the match is scheduled for, and you should try and catch it.
Yeah, definitely 30K versus Big Push Power. I think this is probably going to be one of the most interesting ones this week. Anyways, I'm curious to see the results of the Imagine versus Vendetta series, and kind of maybe go back and watch the VOD on that one and see how Imagine does there. This is a good warm up week for them, I would say. Caffeinated Knights versus DGen. That one could be a little interesting as well. That's teams that have been around, or at least players that have been around competing for a while. That one could be a banger. The 7 Rings, I'm going to assume that one's going to be there's probably going to be a clear cut winner in that one. I'm going to say it's 7 Rings, but again, I'm going to go back and watch the results and kind of see how the games play out. And this Bronze 6, go ahead.
I was going to say the Dragon Strike versus the 7 Rings is going to be a very interesting one, because Dragon Strikes is such a brand new team on the block that seeing how they pair into 7 Rings for their first week will kind of give us an idea of where do they fall in this hierarchy of what we think Heroic Division is going to look like.
Absolutely. And then this Bronze 6 versus Rook Gaming, this is going to be I think outside of the 30K and Big Push Power, this one could potentially be one of the other more interesting ones as well. Bronze 6, like I said, they're pretty explosive. We got new org on in the house with Rook Gaming, and I want to see, with the help that if the whispers are true and Justin is in fact coaching these players on a regular basis, how they fare against a team like Bronze 6.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for them here for their first week matches, because Bronze 6 has such a solid foundation in their team, solid years worth of working together to end up in Heroic Division. But, I mean, Rook Gaming has some pretty skilled players on their team as well. They've been working in things like HRCS, so I think that's another matchup to kind of we know the power of Bronze 6 already. We've seen them play multiple seasons of NGS, and a new team on the block, Rook Gaming, coming in and seeing how that series plays out, if it's close at all, gives us again another idea of where Rook Gaming is going to fall in the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Let's continue on. We'll talk a little bit more now about Big Push Power and 30K. As this is the match we're going to be casting tonight. So we're going to break down the roster here. Let's take a look at 30K first. They have epic player Lemieux, Zadie, Marlowe, Albatox, and Negrum. I'm not sure if it's going to be Marlowe playing tonight or not. He's been kind of, at least this last split of HRCS, he's been stepping out and just subbing when needed. So I'll be interested to see who's going to be playing this evening. But thoughts on 30K, thoughts on some of these players, Goon, anything specific you want to mention?
Yeah, obviously some names we've seen around quite a bit. Epic player, 30K Violet has been competing in all the amateur stuff. That's pre-Storm Div and all the NGS. They've been around scrimming and doing their thing. They barely missed out on the Storm Division qualifier, and they got third, if I'm not mistaken, in the HRCS. Were they third? I can't remember. Yeah, yes. Third place last night. So hopefully, they're coming in with the renewed spirit, refresh. All right, hey, that super sweaty mode over there is done. Let's spend the season kind of practicing, honing in our skills and developing ourselves a little bit. And hopefully they're coming in ready to go, and they feel good. Hopefully they're feling good. That's what's I think would be most important. If I was their coach, it's hey, make sure we're coming into this, we know what's going on, and we're good. We're not down on ourselves, and we got a whole season of stuff ahead of us to practice.
Absolutely. Taking a look now at the roster of Big Push Power, I actually had a nice little conversation with Sovereign today. I reached out to him to learn a little bit more about his team, and this is what he told me about his team. That Big Push Power began as a free agents team of washed up Storm League players from Heroes Lounge. After that, with a few roster additions, they joined in NGS in season 12. For 13, they increased their roster even more, acquiring Miniken. And now they practice. They have 10 members on their roster, so they do in-houses with each other. They strive to do their best this season, and they're going to the Miami LAN. Interesting fact.
That's
if you didn't
right.
know.
Yeah, I did see their names on there. That's right.
Yeah, so they're gonna be there this weekend. They're gonna be going down to Miami to compete there. So if you guys are going there, maybe keep an eye out for them. Be like, hey, I caught your game on Monday. Say hello. And you want to know another really interesting thing? Sovereign plays on a trackpad. Their captain of their team plays on a trackpad. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're a support mate.
he's made it to Heroic Division on a trackpad. That's not too bad.
I know a guy that played on a trackpad at a very high level. I think Slexia knows this guy too. That guy is a true gamer. Trackpad gamers, you know what? Respect. Nothing but respect. This roster here, you know, there's a lot of different players here that are on the roster. This is a lot of people that you might have to scout out and see what their player comforts are, what they like to pick, or maybe what their pocket picks are. Obviously, Alpharak is here, an Alarak, you know, connoisseur. I won't say an Alarak one trick. I'll say a connoisseur.
Yeah.
So you know that's something that you have to be aware of. The teams that know they're playing will probably ban the Alarak if that's a threat or not. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what 5 players that will be there today and how they perform here. I think it'll be this is probably going to be one of the harder series for Big Push Power. I think one of the harder teams to face in this first week in the season. But we'll see how they look.
Well, this team too, they were in Heroic Division last season. They finished 5th seed and were knocked out round 1 of playoffs. But I will say that quite a few of these players have experience on other team names playing together. So Final Stand, C2D2, Sovereign, and Mike all used to play on Fat Neptune for season 11 of NGS. Alpharak and Concept played on the Wind Train in season 10 together. So there's a lot of pre-existing synergy in this team, even though the actual Big Push Power name, also they were previously known as Big Potato Push, if you didn't know. That roster, that team has only been around a couple seasons here.
And I just want to quickly, again, apologize to Sovereign. I didn't mean to taunt when I killed you in the scrim, okay? I fat-fingered the top button. It was an accident. I swear. I wasn't being toxic. Not yet, anyways.
C2D2 in chat says that Sovereign's bringing his USB trackpad to Miami so that he can play. I think that's so interesting. That must be so difficult. But I guess once you learn to play the game that way, it would probably be hard to transition. It's like going from keyboard to controller. Or back the other way.
That's hard.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what's going on tonight. Goon, do you have any guesses of how this plays out? For me, I think that this is going to be another match where Big Push Power played a little bit of Hercs. 30K's been, I think, doing a lot more recently, at least publicly, that we've seen. So I think it'll be a kind of a match to kind of see how Big Push Power again kind of stands up to some of these better known teams, maybe teams that we've been seeing a lot of recently. What do you think?
Here's what I think. This is what I would like to see. Specifically, I think from 30K. I'm gonna give you some free stuff here. I would like to see this dependence on the Blaze kind of reduced a little bit, and let's pick up that Hogger again. For whatever reason, we've seemed to let the Hogger go, and we're at this is a division. This is an area of competitive play where not a lot of people really have. Maybe there aren't very many Hogger players, good Hogger players here, and showing the power of the Hogger will one net you wins, and 2 kind of push everybody else to level up a little bit. Seeing Epic Player removed from the Hogger and put on things like Blaze and Leoric to me have seemed a little weird. That being said, for the side of Big Push Power, I think that their special blend of chemistry and pocket strats will probably find them, some victories here as well. And understanding what their opponents play on a consistent basis will allow them to have a bigger edge, a better edge going into these matches.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up here because this is match start time. So we're going to go to a quick break while you get the lobbies set up and get everything set up for you guys. And we'll be back shortly with Big Push Power taking on 30K Violet here. Thanks for tuning in for the pre-show, guys. See you soon.